If it starts to slow down or something, we'll do episode by episode MVP, stuff like that. All right, welcome back to Fright Flicks, and what could possibly be whatever. It might be the very last Scream Queens video that we do for quite some time. So,
well, definitely for quite some time, maybe forever.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, God, whatever. We've all talked about that endlessly. But this is going to be our season review and our killer congratulations. Yeah. Going to point you guys out that called it right. We've all seen the season. We all know what we're talking about. Those who called Hester out, we will get to those at the end. Make sure to stick around. So, season review of Scream Queens. What did you think?
Way better than I expected it to be. And to phrase it a little more harshly, way better than it had any right to be.
Sure.
Just based on the pedigree of the people that make this show, they make shows that are wildly successful that I don't really enjoy.
Sure.
Having such a strong, Mean Girls streak to it, such an over-the-top, somewhat absurdist sense of comedy, didn't have a great feeling. I remember, the first half of the pilot episode, me sitting there thinking, this is not working for me.
Right.
But it was a two-part premiere.
Right.
They showed the first two episodes back-to-back. So I just sat there, and I powered through it, and I watched and I was sold by the end of that second episode. It immediately picked up. So, yeah, this is something that I might sit here and say, oh, yeah, this wasn't for me. But it was good enough that they made it for me with vibrant, really great electric characters, to which I will credit, give 95% of the credit to the actors themselves. A little bit of credit to the showrunners, basically for hiring these people. But a lot of these characters turned out so great because of those performances.
Sure.
And the individual performances really are what make the show so good to me. For its overall, the first season had some highs and lows. Overall, I feel it's a really funny show that you should check out because there are these great, original, unique characters on there that I think you would enjoy.
Yeah, true. And it's funny what you were saying earlier is I tried to look back and remember, and we had finished Scream, and I remember putting something out, what should we cover next? And I knew Scream Queens was coming up just because of Jamie Lee Curtis and Emma Roberts. But I would not have been sold at all, would not have been on my radar. So I remember we put it out. We were like, should we do Scream Queens? This lame show for girls, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And I remember a few people were like, fuck you, this is going to be awesome. And I was like, okay, fair enough. That was the response. We'll go ahead and we'll watch this.
Yeah.
And I remember...
If you want to get us to watch something, just say, fuck you, this will be awesome. Yeah. And then we'll go, all right, well, if it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Like fucking Hotel.
Right.
What did we get, 3 into that?
Yeah.
Individual reviews, and we both were like, no, do you want to do 4? No. Do you? No.
I tapped out. I submitted to Ryan Murphy's sleeper hold.
Exactly. And that's what's funny is, I've gone back and I'm rewatching the American Horror Stories right now, and they're really not that bad. It only goes to prove how fucking bad I think Hotel is. It's just not for me. But yeah, how this was so for me. You know what I mean? And I remember sitting through the pilot and having to be like, you can listen to our review of it, and being like, even both parts, I was like, I was charmed by it. Mm-hmm. But I was not, really taken by it at all. And I remember you sent me something where you were like, man, this better pick up. I need to find the email, but it was like, this better pick up because I don't know if I can do 12 weeks of this Glee shit, is what you said. And I remember feeling bad because I felt like I forced you to watch Scream, which I did, probably for 9 out of 10 episodes. I kind of forced that through, and I was like, we got another one of these that I gotta fucking make Nate watch every week so we can talk about it. And then, episode 3 fucking killed it. So, and I was like an immediate fan.
Yeah.
From episode 3, I was like, holy shit. And I go back and I watch the original episodes, and they're actually better than I remember it being, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, and Ryan Murphy's a good director, and I forget about that. But
that's interesting.
Just like you didn't care about
you
the
like them more
yet.
when you watch them after the show has already won you over the first time you watched them, the show was trying to win you over.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
Right.
I don't know. Well, it's also because it was, I guess, like, really anything, but I don't like crediting this to TV shows because fucking movies do it in that span. Especially we got 2 episodes. I mean, a movies could do, is that the characters didn't grab me. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I liked the actors, yeah, but the characters never did anything for me. And I don't exactly remember what it was. I just think guilt by association is how good I enjoyed 3. I was like, anybody associated with this, including the fictional characters, are now good in my book.
Right.
Like, if you're a fan of the show, we can be friends. If you're the writers of the show, I now, for a few weeks, built more and more and more respect for you. Oh, God, whatever. We'll get to that at the end. But yeah, once 3 kicked off, and then 4 was all, like, I was into this shit, and I was fucking hooked. And I really didn't think so. I still kind of to this day almost feel guilty about posting it almost every time I do on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. Because I'm like, anybody who doesn't watch this show is going to think, oh, these guys are supposed to be horror guys. Why are they posting about Mean Girls 2, Electric Boogaloo everywhere? You know, it's like, but you don't get it until you watch it. How
right. The Mean Girls
funny.
Are in a horror movie, you know, which is a comedy premise. This is a comedy show set in a horror world.
Well, that's the sad thing, is as we ended up realizing, is that it favored its comedy
absolutely
infinitely more than it should have. I will say that, is that, whew, they miscalculated that shit. I have no problem with comedy horror. I have no problem with how funny this was versus how much is. But when it totally ended up favoring comedy over any kind of mystery or horror, you lost me there, buddy.
Yeah.
But, again, like I said, how it all started out and then how it picked up. When were you, like, really into it again? Can't remember. I think it was 6 before you were like, this show is fucking awesome.
Which episode was Chainsaw?
It was 3.
Okay, by the end of Chainsaw, like, looking back, Chainsaw is one of my favorite episodes.
Sure.
That had a lot of laughs in it, but even by episode 3, there were enough funny elements in it that even if I didn't maybe have to watch it for a review, I still probably would have checked out the next one. Maybe I wasn't super sold on it, but honestly, you know what I was super sold on? From the very first time we see Chad Radwell and Boone hitting golf balls at hippies,
right? And
their exchange with Chanel, like, I want to see more of these 2 guys. They are hilarious.
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe by the time we got to episode 5 or 6, there were enough of those individual elements where I'm like, this is a can't miss show because there are so many great things about it.
Yeah, no, true, definitely. And I mean, what's funny is, I don't know if I really had too many moments, but that scene that you're talking about was a big thing in the first few episodes, the first 2, because my favorite part where I was like, you know what, this actually might be really good, is of course them hitting golf balls at hippies. I was like, okay, we got some characters that I can identify with in this part. And him loving Michael Bay, like, I have a sweet spot for Michael Bay. He's fucking terrible.
Right.
He's a good director. He just has too much power, basically, is what it is. And it was Chanel doing her little cry sobbing thing in that scene, and just seeing the chemistry that everybody had. And then everyone's chemistry started to get more and more honed in and just better. And like the lame characters, they knew enough. And that's what's so fucking tragic about this show, is they're smart. They know what they're doing. The lame characters, I said, I don't fucking like this Lucien Lavacourt, I don't even remember, Earl Grey. He had, like, his one scene with Zayde. I was like, I don't like him. He was hardly ever in the show again.
He was like a Dickie Dollars background guy.
Yeah, they didn't keep the lame characters, and they tried to keep the good characters as much as possible. And then you'd have characters like Chanel number 3, where it was like, even in Chainsaw, where in hindsight it's good. In 4, it wasn't until 6 where it was like, oh, I realize why she is an expendable now. Like, it took me a while, and maybe it took Billie Lourd a while is what it was. But once she hit it, then you look back and you can see it forming.
And I would like to say something similar about Abigail Breslin.
Oh, gosh, she vast improvement.
She started off not bad, but just sort of there. But over the course of the season, she really dialed it in the last few episodes. She's a standout of every single scene that she's in for those last few episodes.
Although I was almost wondering no, it isn't this, but we got less Chad, so her comedy rose a bit more to the top.
Definitely.
But no, because if you watch the first few episodes, she really plays more of the mean girl shtick.
Mm-hmm.
Or she's like, doesn't know where to go and just whatever. But once she embraced the whining and the sad and the fucking just like, so put upon poor me, Laurel and Hardy thing, she was fucking perfect. And I love in, of course it's not the last episode, but the Dorcas, where she's at the
last good episode?
Yeah, where she's at the table. And we talked about some of the other stuff she did, but there's a part where she's like, oh, we need to go behind the Bennigans, or just stay away from places gay people go, Bennigans or whatever. And she does this thing where she's like, so what's the plan? Like, it's just fucking idiosyncratic. This character is losing her shit every single episode. And then Billie Lourd, just, like I said, what she has is you can even go back to the original episodes, and now when you get what she was doing, now it's funny. Because everybody else was so big, she's the queen of deadpan.
Yes.
Like, I just thought of it earlier today when Boone comes in and he's talking about, oh, I should be in here. She's like, wow, you've been talking for a while. Fucking classic. And I love her. I mean, it's really hard to say who's, like, the standout. I mean, I think yours is pretty obvious to anyone who's listened to one fucking review of this.
Right.
Who the standout is. But it's like, I have such a fucking love for Billie Lourd.
Like, the thing is, though, I've got my personal favorite, but we could do, like, legitimately a top 5 best characters. Difficult. You know, and it would be tough to determine and we'd have to leave somebody good off of it.
Yeah.
You know, over the course of the season, as funny as Niecy Nash is, consistently, she was the only one. I mean, she sort of started out on fire and then remained that way.
Yeah, until the last few episodes where she just wasn't written to be funny.
No, she was just minimized too much. But, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis, on the other hand, she started off really good. But she improved as well as she just... And even in the last couple of episodes, the show has fallen apart. She's doing whatever she can to hold it together. She
was still good.
She is such a pro. She's so good.
Everybody, that's the thing, is everybody was really good in the final. That's what makes the final bearable. Although, I'm sorry, at three, possibly, I think I've even watched it 4 times now. Guilty by association again, I do not like Hester. When I go back and watch the episodes, nothing is tainted other than Hester. I can't fucking stand her. Now, she has some really, really funny shit in there. But overall, if she's not being classic funny, I'm just like, fucking Hester, I fucking hate you, fucking... But, you know, that's really the only downside to the rest of it. Everybody else, even in the last episode, is still on their game. They're just having to deal with such shit thrown at them.
And, you know, definitely not throwing a race card, but, you know, hey, it is what it is. The last few episodes, Niecy Nash, as well as Keke Palmer as Zayday, they weren't given anything to do. They were such an integral part of the show up till that point that they were still there and present in a lot of scenes, but they just didn't have their own thing going on. So, not their fault. Neither one of them ever phoned in a performance. Period. They did great all the way, but you get close to the end, they just started having less and less for them. Which is sad, because they were both really good characters. What could have been with a character who was given a chainsaw as a family heirloom by her grandma? Just the possibilities. And they ended up going nowhere with that. But still, the end of that episode, I was thinking, man, where's Zayday going to go?
Right. When is she going to embrace this? When is maybe her grandma going to come into it? You know? There's just so much... I mean, but that's just bound to happen. What are you going to do?
Sure.
Is that she
when you have such a big cast,
Yeah, she was Grace's buddy, and they ended up making Pete Grace's little surrogate. I mean, I kind of don't understand why they didn't just get the fuck rid of Pete and make Zayday, because Pete starts as a fucking barista. He's not, I mean, he mentions being an investigative journalist, but whatever, fuck it. They pulled enough stuff. They could have made Zayday her Nancy Drew sidekick. And then they could have gone on all those adventures together, and Zayday could have ended up being the one who got tempted into being the red. Fucking Pete was only hired because of his fucking Matthew McConaughey impression.
Yeah. And
so we lost that on Zayday.
It's funny you say that, because it would have been great if Zayday played that Pete role.
I just thought of that on the spot.
Because the scene where Niecy Nash finds out that she was right the whole time about Zayday, even though she didn't have any evidence, would have been a genius scene.
Yep.
So,
and that would have brought Niecy Nash back into it in a more pivotal fashion.
It would also explain how she could end up being chief of police. See? I told you who the killer was. Huh?
Okay. It's just on the spot you can think of things that are better. That they fell asleep at the wheel. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, whatever. We can go ahead and get into that and then maybe backtrack a little bit. Is how much did okay, my review for this season, had it not been for the last episode, I was damn near close to giving it a 10 out of 10, just because I figured if, like, in some form, you looked, Mike reviewed this, and he gave it this. Mike reviewed. If you looked and saw that Mike gave Scream Queens from its poster, and you know what it's about, 10 out of 10, you know that it's not going to be amazing, but that it's 10 out of 10 for what that poster promises. So I was damn near close to being like, fuck it, 10 out of 10. Because there's a lot of shit that we kind of take for granted, being that Scream was like, can you do a slasher as a TV show? And it was like the whole series, we're like, I don't know if they can.
Right.
And they're kind of just stretching a movie out for 10 episodes. Is these guys did a slasher and did a lot of creative shit that we never see in slashers and made it work so much. I don't think in any of our reviews did we ever say, wow, they're making a slasher work as a TV show. They made it look easy to do it, and Scream struggled 9 out of 10 episodes to pull it off. So I was like, you know what? I think I would give this 10 out of 10. What would you have given it before that last episode?
I would have given it an 8 out of 10. Which, part of the reason for that is, for me, this was a particularly strong year of television. I actually spent a couple of nights pondering over, like, my top 10 list for the year.
Sure.
Scream, and, you know, there are a couple of shows that were 9s or 10s out of 10 this year. So, Scream was definitely on that list, though. It was definitely going to be in the top 10. 8 out of 10... no question, which is a really strong score for me. And
Scream Queens? Or
Scream Queens, yes.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. Not Scream. That's
right.
Definitely not in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Holy shit.
Scream Queens. So yeah, it definitely won me over for what it was, and I ended up buying into the comedy. Just overall, it was very successful. And then what happened was, it's like in an Olympic gymnastics meet, where they have this amazing floor routine, and then they can't stick the landing. And not only do they not stick the landing, they fall down and break their leg, and lose a ton of points for something that was really good, but that closing bit, that's what you leave the audience with. And when you fall down at the very end, so still, I mean, in context of the overall performance, I'm not docking the show huge for it. Like, ultimately, my score is going to be a 7 out of 10 for the season. Still, like, very strong. And it's something that I would just qualify to people. Oh, it's really funny, but don't finish it.
I know, you said that. Yeah. And I'm just like, no one's going to fucking listen to us, though.
No, they won't.
This is the thing, is I keep trying, and I still have yet to do it. I cannot think of an analogy of how this felt. To fucking describe to people how this felt. It felt like, off the top of my head, the best thing I can think of at this moment would be if you were a huge Milli Vanilli fan and it broke your heart that they were that they were fake. That all of their promises, they were not talented and they were just fucking with you, and it was all just there's got to be a Milli Vanilli fan out there who went through this fucking
I
identity
bought your T-shirt,
crisis.
motherfucker.
Because I can't think of another instance of something being 99% good and the end run fucking so horrendously terrible that you're like, who hired you guys to write something in the first place ever before? It was totally the actors who carry that last episode, and the writing is horrendous. It really is fucking bad.
You mentioned guilt by association earlier. The episode Dorcas, actually, it gets docked points because it was shown back to back with. If that had been shown 1 week and then they had isolated that final episode the following week, but the final episode was so bad that it makes me just lump those 2 episodes together.
I know, I can't help it.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, I mean, maybe I would have hated Dorcas. Maybe there would have been a thing about that because whatever the Pete thing, but I truthfully think that was the line that I was willing to give. Mm-hmm. If it would have just been the kind of like, even if Pete was the overall, let's say, I may have hated it, I may have been like, oh, I can poke holes in this and whatever, but I really think, and it's hard to say because of the context of what we actually got, but it's like, I really think I could have been like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I can deal with that. That's not what I wanted. They picked the Piper, the one who's like, just never have that character around.
Right.
You know? But they did it even worse, being that they say Hester didn't kill anybody at the end. So our murder mystery, as we're trying to figure it out, by the end of the day, what they tell us is, oh, it was Boone the whole time, which we knew, give or take, we knew.
Yeah.
By the end of the first episode. So there was no mystery this whole time. We were trying to guess who the killer was. And she didn't kill anybody until the last episode. So the entire time we were trying to guess who the fucking Red Devil killer was, and it was who we knew it was from the pilot episode.
Yeah.
This show pisses me off so much. Anyway, so the thing about it is it drops, and it only drops a little bit, but what sucks is I feel bad recommending it now. Something that I loved and was going to force.
You know, at the end, they're going to walk away unsatisfied.
Yeah. This was something that I was going to actively try and force every single person I ever knew. Watch Scream Queens. Watch Scream Queens. Now, if somebody just randomly comes up to me and is like, oh, Scream Queens, is that worth watching? I'm going to have to go,
right.
Well, and it's just like, just don't fuck it. Either that or what I should do is be like, oh yeah, you should watch it. Hester ends up being the killer.
Yeah.
They're like, you son of a bitch, I'll kill you. Be like, enjoy the show. You know what I mean? Because that will help them in the long run.
Yeah. Or, I mean, maybe you could just say, yeah, at the end, it really falls apart, so just enjoy it for what it is, Okay, something else I wanted to make sure I pointed out, because we never really pointed it out before, is Hold on, before we move on, what was your rating, ultimately, on it?
I don't even fucking know.
You don't know?
Because you said 8, I think mine went down to a 7, and that's a begrudging 7.
Oh, well, mine would have been an 8 before the ending, and it dropped down to a 7. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
I got confused where it ended up being.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that drops from, like I said, I was going to, and I understand you giving it an 8, like, that makes sense. If I was going to review it just as, like, on its own grounds, it would have gotten an 8, but I wanted to hype it up a little bit more for people. Yeah, and so it drops like 3 full fucking points for me from one fucking episode.
Sure.
Oh.
But, I mean, the problem wasn't one episode. The problem was the resolution of the season.
However, I will say that going back and watching him, it doesn't totally... The only thing that's tainted is Hester. Yeah. It's still enjoyable watching it again.
And, to be clear, my problem isn't even that it's Hester. It was the way in which it was presented to us.
Oh, I know.
The way
That's
it was
what
revealed.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is like, and that's how devastating it really was, is that we were in the hands of people who didn't know what they were doing the entire time.
Yeah.
And were fucking with us. That's what you would think would taint everything. Be like, oh, that's clever. No, actually isn't, because they don't even know that was clever. But it doesn't, because, I basically am going to go by the thought, and I've heard a lot of people say this too. Thank you guys for saying this, by the way. Surreal that people would say this in such mass numbers, but people are like, I just want to forget this episode happened and just believe that all your great shit was right. You know what I mean?
Our theories were so much more interesting than what ended up being the case.
And keep your Chanel 5 theory and just watch the series. Don't watch the last one and make up your own ending.
You know, my oldest daughter, Savannah, who is 10, she ended up guessing that it was Hester because she's a 10-year-old that just
face value.
Yeah, she saw what was there. Hester is, like, looking back, Hester obviously seems like a killer. She's deranged. She knows. They call that out in the opening about how she knows so much about So, they lead with that. And the 10-year-old just didn't buy in to, like, all the subterfuge, and she didn't spend hours, like we did, thinking up all these great creative ways that the story could go. She was just like, it's probably Hester.
See, this is the thing. Is I've thought about it. I've tried to be positive. I did my whole positive thing. Yeah. I'm done with that.
Dude, I'm
done.
There's no bigger cheerleader for the show, and not in a brainless way. Like, you promoting the shit out of the show, you loved it for all these right reasons. Mm-hmm. And then, so yeah, it seems a little bit of a betrayal. I was a huge fan
that was organically grown.
Yeah.
And so this should tell you, fuck you guys, how bad it was. But, see, the thing about Hester, as I try to be positive, and I was like, maybe it is kind of creative that you would make the person who's the most obvious the killer. You know, I didn't guess, so that must mean that it was a good murder mystery. So I was thinking about it, I'm like, no, fuck you, no. It is not creative, it is not good writing, and it is bad. Because this is the thing, is what's something you want every character to do throughout the course of any story, no matter how long it is? The one thing you want them to do.
Surprise you?
Change.
Yeah.
Hester, that is the problem. What would have been great about Grace being the killer is it would have changed your perception of her. If it would have been Niecy Nash, if it would have been any single character,
right,
it would have changed your perception of them. We found out that the psycho was a psycho. What you did was create a character who did not change from the moment you met her to the very end. There was not one instance of change the entire time. That is bad writing on level 1.
Agreed. And then, you know, the other reveal in the final 2 episodes of Pete is... Also, we actually commented several times on how Pete seemed like the most obvious choice simply because every time there was a big Red Devil attack, he usually wasn't there.
Right, but that's something I wanted to point out about Pete in that way, too, was that, and this is Killer Congrats, we're getting to that, is something I wanted to point out about Pete in Scream. If you haven't seen Scream, watch out, because we're about to spoil something. It ended up being Piper. Now, we both did not like Piper the entire series. She was useless. We both, the second she started becoming useful in like episode 6, we were like, she's the killer now because they're making her. And we knew she was the killer the entire fucking time. Mask comes off, we were not disappointed.
Right.
When Pete walked down that fucking hallway and we sat here in your fucking living room and watched that, we both said, wow, that's a surprise.
Yep.
And I is pissed off and is like, what the fuck does this mean? That was a reaction of surprise and it was fun. Because you can guess a killer, like Pete, level of obvious, that does not mean it's bad by any means. It's still fun. I guessed the killer. Who gives a shit? You know, at the end of the day, it sucks when you don't guess the killer, right? And you make a whole fucking podcast about it. But
right,
let's just move past all that. So there's no problem with that. The problem is, when Hester didn't have any character arc. The reveal was, this character is nothing.
She's exactly as she appeared to be.
Cardboard the entire time. Anyway, that pisses me off just a little bit. We're about to get into Killer Congrats, and one thing I have been wanting to mention the entire time, and I always forget, is the score and the music of this show. Any thoughts on it, particularly from you?
There were, in general, a lot of really cute music cues. I like how they tied it in story-wise with Oliver Hudson and his love of playlists and songs that were appropriate for the 20 years ago party kept turning up throughout, the soundtrack throughout the season.
And although clever enough, that is funny. I never thought about it that way, that the music from it's actually from the 80s for the most part, but like that it's kind of harkening back to the party throughout. But like the music that plays at the party is actually a modern day song.
Right.
And it's one of the few modern day songs that plays. But anyway, what were you saying?
But
yeah,
you know
this
what?
is all the music that was source music, as
Right.
they call it.
Yeah. So I noticed that a few times, but usually I noticed it in like that's cute way. Honestly, the best thing I could say about the scoring for the show is that I never really thought about it, which means it was appropriate. You know? It was appropriate for scary scenes, but it never really jumped out at me.
Well, maybe that's something, if you ever watch it again, to keep an eye out for. That's something I always wanted to point out, and it's so enjoyable every time I watch it, is its score. And that's actually one of the things that made me think it was going to be bigger into horror and take itself more seriously, because the score would be so serious in its horror moments, and was such a genuinely good horror score. Like, we've been getting the 80s stuff and all that, whatever. But, I mean, there's really good shit in there. But there would be parts like when Chanel number 3 is like, "Oh, Boone, you're dead," and Boone like moves away. It's creepy. Considering what we got, again, pretty cool stuff. It seemed like they were taking horror seriously. Pops up, he's like, "Boo!" The score is like, dun 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 dun. You know what I mean? And it was just, there's some really fucking good, cool score in here. And then the source music, I was like, if anybody saw my fucking like music I've been listening to, they wouldn't know what. They'd be like, "Who the fuck stole Mike's fucking iPod?" Because it's always been, I listen to the same shit I've been listening to forever.
Yeah, me too.
But now it's seriously like Belinda Carlisle, I think, is there, and all this fucking like goofy 80s music shit. And like, I remember I was looking up 80s music to be like, oh, I wonder if this will show up. Like, Hey Mickey, I was like, Hey Mickey and like that Take On Me song. I was like, those two are definitely going to be in this show. That's how much I was into it, is I would listen to music that reminded me of it. But anyway, I mean, it all ended up kind of recycling, because I think they used that Breakfast Club song like twice.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But anyway, I just want to make sure I pointed that out. That the score specifically, but yeah, their musical choices were always really fun. So we're about to get into Killer Congrats, but real quick, let's do a little mini Oscars. Okay, I'm going to prompt you and then I'll give you mine. Okay, Best Actor.
Oh, well, Best Actor would have to be Glenn Powell, no question. For Chad Radwell, who, and he was given so little to do at the end of the season. We've discussed before that it seems like originally he was probably going to be killed at some point, and then they just ended up, they couldn't kill him because, we just thought of this other great scene that Chad has to do, so they kept him around.
Yeah, pretty much.
Beyond his lifespan, but still, he was a shining star every scene he was in.
Right on. Okay, and so let's move on. Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, Oliver Hudson as Grace's dad.
Again, I agree.
Yeah, he's he made more than, it's not that he made the most of what he was given. He made more than that. He really, the scene in Chainsaw where his reaction to watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre with like this sweaty like porno booth look, like he's watching a peep show. It's awesome. And then, even at the end when the wheels are falling off the show, his mostly nude scene where he's seducing Dean Munch is hey, mirrors exist in Oliver Hudson's house. He knew what he looked like. He threw himself into the comedy aspect of, not that he's like a bad-looking dude or whatever, but he really played his own physical appearance up for comedy.
No, it is really funny for
which
that.
Which is always, in my estimation, a bold thing for an actor to do. So he was great.
Yeah, exactly. And he never really got to get broad until the very end, but his little moments were fucking great. And he took what was such a boring character, and separate from the writing, would just give these moments, like Billie Lourd, these moments of just like pure fucking genius and just a look. By the way, did you know that that's Goldie Hawn's and Kate Hudson, it's a family?
Oh.
He's Kurt Russell's, I guess, stepson. Although I don't think they're actually married, whatever. But yeah, that's so How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is kind of a joke on that. Yeah, kind of interesting. Okay, best actress.
Okay, now what's the dividing line between best actress and best supporting actress? Because I mean, really, like your main characters are Chanel #1 and Grace, and for the most part, everybody else is more, at least thematically, in a supporting role. I mean, probably my favorite overall performance from a female this season was Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right on.
She started off strong, and she ended up strong. And it was a tough field because Chanel Oberlin, it took a while, but boy, she won me over. She was damn good in that role.
Mm-hmm. Giving it to Chanel Oberlin.
Yeah.
I loved her from the very beginning, loved her to the end. One of my favorite female comedy performances of all time. Reminds me of Lucille Bluth as a younger Lucille Bluth.
Yeah, I could see that.
That hit me one day because it took me a long time. I listened to it a few times where she's like, right before she pushes Hester down the stairs, she's like, and then does that funny ass run, and I was like, what the fuck is she saying? And she's saying, I'll kill you, neck brace. But like she says it so fucking wild that like it took me forever. And then I saw that Ryan Murphy or Brad Falchuk pointed out that my favorite joke from the beginning that was like, okay, maybe I'll give this show another, is when she goes down the street and says, is she totally came up with that like on the spot. And if you watch Grace in that scene, it literally scares Skylar Samuels, and she like almost breaks character at that point. Too fucking funny. So yes, I would say it goes to her. Fucking brilliant. Best supporting actress then.
If you go back or if you have listened to us throughout, you know that I'm going to say Niecy Nash, but I'm actually not, because now that it's all said and done and wrapped up, Abigail Breslin.
Really?
Yep, she's my favorite supporting actress. Definitely started out slow, but like, I mean, she gets it because I love Officer Rainisha Williams on Reno 911.
True.
But
I don't. I've never seen an episode, and I love her just as much.
But what I'm saying is it's the same character. She's honed this character.
Oh, I see.
Over like 7 years, and now she does a slightly smarter version, of the same character. So Abigail Breslin, on the other hand, coming out of this show, my estimation of her has risen considerably. I look forward to Niecy Nash playing a similar character on another show one day, and she's going to be just as funny. But, yeah, Abigail Breslin really ended up stealing this one over the last few episodes with super strong stuff. Like Oliver Hudson, she made more than what she should have been able to make out of that role.
That's very true. My reasoning goes that if Abigail Breslin is in something again, doesn't mean I'm going to watch it. Pretty much anybody. Chad Radwell will get that, and possibly Oliver Hudson, but I doubt it because he's probably not going to be in anything worth nearly watching.
Right.
Because he wasn't given enough. Like I said, the reason I watch this show is Jamie Lee Curtis, and they get watches from me basically, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Billie Lourd because I was genuinely excited as shit to see Star Wars. Nothing excited me about Star Wars. I like it. I'm not a fan.
She's going to be in it for like 3 minutes, right?
Exactly, and I'm not like whatever, but that's when I realized how much I did like her. Is that one, my favorite part of the entire final is just her look when they get sentenced to go to jail. And there are great moments of Chanel Oberlin in that episode. But I was like, she's just fucking great. And she's never been in anything before. She doesn't have a track record.
That's right.
And she makes the most out of that fucking character. And like I said, it's a magic trick. She didn't evolve. We just got used to the genius that she was pulling from the very beginning, basically. I would say the second episode. The first episode, she doesn't really feel like that. But, yeah, when she came into that bathroom, was in 6 with Predatory Lesbian and just hit that stance, I was like, this chick might be genius. So I go back and check. And, yep, she's genius. So I give it to Billie Lourd. But like I said, the only reason Jamie Lee Curtis, she got nominated for a Golden Globe, and Niecy Nash, I mean, again, these people are going to win awards and shit forever. Billie Lourd totally should take it. Okay, we'll do this a little bit quicker. Best written episode.
Best written episode. Gee, I don't know. I really don't. I've got, like, in my head, I've got, like, my 3 episodes that when you say to me, oh, what's your favorite episode? There are 3 that I maybe even in my initial review, I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the best episode of the show. Sure. But now that it's done and I think back, 3 episodes in particular jump out as memorable.
Okay, well, maybe we should hold off. If you're going to be broad like that, maybe we should hold off, because I definitely want to hear those, but I want to, like, lead up to it, basically, because I am genuinely interested. Yeah, best writing, I would say, is I'm just going to give it to Thanksgiving, because, like I said, Thanksgiving is 2 separate things. It was a total Christmas at the Radwells comedy that totally functioned, and it's mystery while pointing everybody out and all that kind of stuff. It kept every single plate spinning, added new stuff, tried to sideswipe you, didn't pull any of that cute shit that you knew wasn't going to be.
It's the episode where everything worked.
Yeah.
So I would give it to Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. Best directed.
You know what? Probably Ghost Stories.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I could see that, definitely.
You know, it bounced around a little bit. They played with a couple of different visual styles, and it stands out as being different.
That's true.
From the rest of the episodes.
Little goblin that pops up. Yeah, and then you have the 50s style. Yeah, no, that makes sense. You know who directed that?
No.
Michael Uppenthal, who also directed multiple episodes of this season of Fargo. And last season. So, I specifically made a note of a lot of directors this season.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Is that this guy is making 2 fucking great shows simultaneously. This guy is the unsung hero of this TV season. Which I haven't seen Fargo yet, but I mean, I know I'm going to love it. So, I'm going to go ahead and make that
just
fucking
brief
statement
side note. Fargo is my pick for the best show of 2015. Part of the reason for that is the directing. There are a lot of reasons, but the fact that, this guy, he works on Fargo as a director, that might have nudged me to, like, pick Ghost Stories if I knew that.
Anyway.
But I didn't. It just, the style of the episode jumped out.
Natural. Yeah.
And your pick?
And I could totally see that. I go with Beware of Young Girls. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but it's Barbara Brown. She has only directed 2 episodes of Glee before this, and she was the script supervisor on, like, episode 1 and 2, so she worked her way up to being the director and did this or did Beware of Young Girls, and she did Black Friday, which I remember saying in Black Friday, I like just the little things that she does. Beware of Young Girls, like I said, I'll get into that a little bit more. I think this lady, I can't find any information on her. I don't know how old she is, anything like that. But she has got some serious talent. And I really think when everybody's, like, trying to figure out how to do, like, maybe not Wonder Woman because she's not that tested. But there's a lot of roles out there that are really, like, just looking for female directors. And I'm like, all right, her name needs to, everybody take notice. This chick needs to get into shit a bit more. So, Beware of Young Girls. It's a bit more restrained than some of the other ones, but that's also what I liked about it. Okay, and so we'll skip a lot of these and just go right into Best Picture.
Best Picture, favorite episode, season 1, easy, no question, Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yep. That was, to me, it was, like I said, it was the episode where everything worked. I liked a lot of the killer theories they threw out, but yeah, when...
Well, it was also Christmas at the fucking Radwell.
And that's...
Yep.
So, killer stuff. For me, pretty much all of my favorite episodes are the ones that I thought were the funniest, which is so hard to quantify, what is funniest, but... Well, just like on the spot earlier, what's my favorite episode? Thanksgiving is the one that pops to mind.
Okay. And that's what's interesting is we both really like the show, of course, but I think we like it, in different ways. but
Yeah.
like it's still also similar because we appreciate the. So you say Thanksgiving. So what were you say 3 episodes stick out? What were those?
Thanksgiving, Ghost Stories, and Chainsaw.
Right on.
And now that the whole thing is behind me, I remember all the salient plot points. I've got a good memory. I remember everything that happens. But it's like thinking back to the old Sergio Leone movies. I can't remember who Clint Eastwood shot in which movie.
Sure.
So a lot of these are the 3 episodes that stand out to me.
Right.
So they're, it's totally personal choice. Overall, I think the season was really strong, and there was a lot of great shit in a lot of episodes. These are the 3 that really stand out to me as being notably funny. Like, I remember them.
And that's funny because I would have always said that 6 would have ended up as your favorite because you really like 6. I remember once we got around to reviewing 6, you were like, that was my shit right there.
What was the title of 6?
7 Minutes in Hell. That was when they were in the, like, panic room. And you were like, that was so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Because that had a lot of chat in it, too.
Yes. That's that was where Armless Caulfield lost his head
Yes.
in that one.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
That was super funny, yeah, now that you mention it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess I'll do my top 3 since you did a top 3, too. And then, pick the top. The top, of course, Chainsaw. Like, I've thought about that, and I've been like, okay, let me rewatch, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, maybe it's just because that was the episode that got me, and it's like, dude, it's just so... Every time I watch that one, because, even I forget sometimes what parts are what part.
Right.
By now, I could probably go scene by scene. But it's like, every time I watch Chainsaw, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, of course, Coney and hashtag Cahoots.
Yeah.
It wins for that, but on that grounds, there are 2 other episodes, or 3, that have moments as good as those moments. But Chainsaw also has him showing everybody Chainsaw Massacre and the chick throwing up in her purse. It also, like, is the one that really started to make the mystery a lot more fun. Such a shame. But yeah.
That was the great Dickie Dollars going out ghetto code looking for the Red Devil,
yes,
right?
exactly. I even forget how awesome
Which
some
is,
of this stuff
is. Next to Thanksgiving, like was the funniest scene in the show to me.
God, too funny. And that's where he's like, Boone was gay. And he's like, dude, he wasn't gay. He said he liked boobs. How could he be gay if he said he liked boobs? And then, like, also, it's just moment by moment. I love everything from this episode where they sell a joke that I absolutely hate, which is when she squeezes she's like, oh, I'm loving this salad. It's like a Big Mac. And she squeezes it and it's like, and she starts laughing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it cuts to Zayde quick drawing her chainsaw out from under her bed and trying to get better at the timing of pulling her. And I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. And then it cuts back to Gigi and she's still laughing at that fucking joke. And I'm like, I love this. But it really does come down to being that my 2 favorite moments out of 3 of the series are in Chainsaw. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously got to win it. I mean, Coney, I knew that this was fucking classic. Seeing mascots fighting each other with chainsaws. I mean, too, what is it? Ended up being Wham, I found out, which is like the, whatever. Nothing against that, but holy hell. Like, some of them album covers, like, I don't know about that. But, anyway, just them going at, and just how funny the little guy in the mascot.
Oh, yeah, Chainsaw is an amazing episode.
Is one of the funniest fucking things I have ever heard in my entire life. God, she sells that so well. So it would be Chainsaw, then Haunted House, actually. And then I'm going to give it to this just because I have a secondary reason for it. Well, I'll get into that in a second. But Haunted House wins it because, I mean, Haunted House is actually really good and moves at a really good pace and everything. And something I want to point out about the 3 you picked that's interesting is you picked one from each of the writers individually.
How about that?
Weird, huh?
And you know what? Jumping back to that earlier question, it was really hard for me to pick a writer because this is such a performer's show for me.
True.
And, like I was saying earlier, virtually all the credit that the show gets is from the actors and actresses and how they create characters and are just so funny. So I didn't even think about the writing a lot of times.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting that, you did that. And then so it's that, Brad, and then the other. Oh, mine are all three different too, actually. That's funny. But my third one's a little bit, like I said, out of left field. But Haunted House moves like a motherfucker. It is fun. It continues the fun of Chainsaw.
Yeah.
And that's where we get the whole caterwauling. That's the best Pete's probably ever been, other than when he's actually given meat to do, later in the final episode that he's in. But it has that fucking them eating the cotton balls, which is really sweet and really funny. But it also has that fight, which I know that you don't necessarily care for that fight, and that fight is tainted now because it's not what I thought it was leading itself up to be, which is that as long as these four stick together, they'll be victorious type stuff. I thought they were going to do the same thing to the Red Devil when it was revealed that Red Devil can kill any one of them individually, but if all four, that's the only way they can be
That would have
beaten.
been a much better payoff.
Yeah, and so that's when I watched that part, I was like, oh, okay, that's where this is going. It's going to have a real, center to it, and they told us what the center is in episode 4. So anyway, that's my third favorite moment after those other two, but it's the first one that's not really comedy-based. Anyway, so I like that one, and then the third one I'm actually going to give it to Beware of Young Girls, because that was one that we weren't sure what we thought of when we first reviewed it.
Right.
We were like, oh, it's an Island episode, and it's only grown on me, and it actually grows even more because now, and maybe an Island episode is a good thing, being that the whole series, I don't know if I could tell every single person, oh, watch the entire series. I can tell people, oh, just watch Chainsaw. But I think if they just watch Chainsaw, they might want to watch the other ones, this, that, the other. But, there's stuff that you would kind of, whatever. Beware of Young Girls is the perfect thing to be like, yeah, just watch that. Because if it doesn't entice you to watch other things, you get a full story.
Would it have really killed them to spend 2 seconds showing Feather in the asylum at the end?
I know, right, man? I'm so disappointed.
Just to tie it in a little bit. They do that, and it makes it less of an Island episode.
Okay, we're going to eventually do a video. I'm currently writing the last 2 episodes. I'm going to put a link up when I finish that in the next few days. But we're going to do What Would We Do second season and how to end it. And Nate had a fucking awesome idea that was infinitely better than anything we got. He was like, I bet you Jamie Lee Curtis ends up in jail right the fuck next to Feather. And then somebody else online was like, oh, well, Feather should get let go. And I'm like, that's even fucking better. Because why should she be in jail? Nope. Just no mention of it at all.
It would be funnier to me if Feather didn't let go, so that she's spending the rest of her life for the crime she didn't commit, and in the cell next to her, Jamie Lee Curtis is spending the rest of her life in the asylum for a crime that she didn't commit.
Yeah.
But it was all 3 of the Chanels instead.
Whatever. Yeah. So anyway, I just think it holds up really well. It's Ryan Murphy, and I mean, it's really fucking silly, but I love how it makes, as it turned out, maybe, I thought it was making fun of mysteries by being how silly it was with the bologna sandwich. Little did I know that's where the whole series was going.
Right.
But again, as a contained thing, that's really funny. And I really appreciate that.
Jamie Lee killed it in this episode.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis, as the reveal of the killer, was a good fucking thing to lead up to. It wasn't Hester at the middle of this episode.
Right.
God, I would have been so fucking pissed off. But anyway, so yeah, this episode, really good. Like I said, the one lady, the use of music at the end, Jamie Lee Curtis talking right to the camera, enjoying her victory. Fucking just, it really is great, wall to wall, and can be watched separately from everything else.
It sure can.
So yeah, that would be my third favorite episode. Okay, so we really need to kind of get into these killer congratulations here, guys. Okay, this is the list, and if you'll see, Nate, at the bottom, I have 2 additions. This is the list of everybody that said Hester on our Final Killer Theories video.
All right. Do you know, ballpark, how many people we had who guessed?
125.
Guessed, educated guessed. 125.
Yes.
And out of those, we got 11 people that got it right. So congratulations up front. Jose Miguel Sierra Orrego, Buttercup Villalobos, which I hope that's a Pulp Fiction reference. Yeah. But you know what? It may not be. Villalobos is actually a super common name.
I like to think it's Pulp Fiction reference.
Razan Matar, Gokai Green, Aylin Reyes, Emma Music, Fun Weekend, that's one word, Fun Weekend, at Clane Britannia, Deirdre Johnson, Mickey Gutierrez, and AJSG11, whatever that stands for, and IDK Captain Bionic.
Yes, and I just want to point out, because I said I would, that the 2 late editions were made after the deadline, but before the next episode aired, I believe. Because I said midnight, and then it didn't come. The next episode, of course, didn't come on until 9 o'clock the next night. So they were the 2 who guest Hester in that.
But they didn't have any inside information. So.
No, exactly. Anybody after the next episode.
It's not like we're giving away money here, so if you got it right, you got it right.
No, but that is what's really cool, is a lot of people would say, and are going to say, and oh, the Hester was obvious. We didn't fucking guess her. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, I'm watching Scream Queens right now, and I think the killer's this, that, the other, blah, blah, blah. And you can say, oh, well, I guessed the killer. And they're going to be like, no, you didn't, blah, 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 until they get to the end and realize whatever. This video is an actual place where you can go and say, I fucking guessed it, and here's fucking proof.
Yep. I guessed it ahead of time.
Yes. That's what we like. Oh, and Savannah.
Yeah, Savannah guessed Hester.
Savannah.
As well. So,
yup.
Good,
awesome.
Good for her. So
Super Sleuths.
Yeah.
That's what I've been meaning to call it. And the Super Sleuths. Yes. So, congratulations, guys. I was going to do a little subcategory thing for Pete, but whatever. Fuck it. That's going to be a gray area. Whatever. We'll keep you up to date with news on Season 2 when we hear it. We'll work those into videos, like I said, when we hear it type stuff. Other than that, I think we might do how we would have done Season 2, possibly the last 2 episodes. I'm currently so into the idea of the last 2 episodes. Like I said, I'm writing scripts for them. I just finished Dorcas today, 44 pages, written in a week. Bet you it's fucking better than you'll think it's better than the actual episode.
Probably.
And Final Girls I'm going to write in a week, because that's all you get when you want to be a TV writer, and that's, if that's what I want to try and do, then I'm going to stick to the rules. So that'll be out. So the next video we do, if you guys want to see that, would be I guess you could do what you would do for the last 2 episodes in Season 2, and I'll just do Season 2. So, we'll do that video if you guys really want it. Other than that, I think that is going to be it for this season, possibly forever.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It was fun watching it and talking about it right up till the very end.
Yep, absolutely. And make sure you stick around for other stuff we do, guys. There are plenty of people who we pulled into watching Scream Queens. I've heard that a lot. They're like, oh, I watched MTV Scream, and then you guys moved on to Scream Queens, so I followed you. Thanks a fucking lot, all said and done. But, it's all good. It's all fun and games. Send us recommendations on maybe what you'd like to see us cover. And we've got a bunch of fun stuff coming for you in the new year and in between these 2 parts. So, that is it for Scream Queens. This is Mike.
And this is Nate.
See you next season, guys. That wasn't so bad. Might not even really have to, an hour.